and welcome to this week's YouTube video. Today I'm going to be painting this little Dachshund. I'm going to briefly break this painting down for you so you understand the colours that I used to do this painting, and then I will show you the time-lapse video where I want to speak about how to stay loose when using reference photos. The colours used in this painting were basically combinations of red and green. So that is opposite colours. I am using red to neutralise my green and vice versa. I am mixing my green using yellow ochre light and ultramarine deep. Plus, I will always add a trace of red to that green too, as this will help integrate my dog into its background, because red will neutralise my green. I am also using the split complementaries of orange and violet. I am adding alizarin crimson to my palette to get these violet colours. For the cooler area, I am using a blue-green with a heavier leaning of blue, and I am mixing in a trace of either alizarin crimson, which will give me a much cooler hue, then adding cadmium red. So which red I add depends upon what temperature I am trying to achieve. Remember, cadmium red is a much warmer red. It is almost orange. Alizarin crimson is a much cooler red and will give you your pinks and purples. Using reds and greens, violets and blue-greens in this dog actually gives the illusion of a brown dog with a glossy coat. By placing my warmer colours next to my cooler colours, this gives the effect of a glossy shine on the dog's coat. Remember, my blue-greens will cool down my reds, plus the addition of white will also cool down my mix. If you want to see my full palette for this painting, please have a look in the description box. Notice also how I have used a bridging green around the dog at various points to integrate him into his background. Without adding green into the painting mix of my dog's fur and using it to bridge across to the blanket, it would have resulted in a jarring effect of dog versus blanket. So now let's look at the time-lapse video of the actual painting. This one was done in 3 sittings. In the first sitting, I tried to lay an average value and colour. Just to give me an idea of what I think I am looking at, I used Gamsol to thin my paints. On the second layer, I am trying to be much more accurate with my values. Make sure you don't tackle your background separately to your object. Otherwise, you will end up with hard edges around your object and it won't look realistic for this reason. On my third layer, I am refining and tweaking. The least amount of painting is probably done on this layer, but it can often be the longest as I am considering every stroke that I lay. I am using a bit of linseed oil on both layers 2 and 3. So now I have described the basic process of how I painted this Dachshund, I wanted to talk in a bit more detail about brushwork. Brushwork really is the icing on the cake when it comes to painting, and achieving loose and expressive paintings has taken me a long time to learn how to do. Just wanted to stress though that there is no right or wrong way to paint. So if you are a more hyper-realistic painter who prefers things to be a bit more detailed and tight, that is just as valid as somebody who is looser. But if you want to learn to be looser with your paintings, this is definitely a skill that you can learn. So how can you achieve painterly loose brush strokes then? I am just going to run through a number of things that I think can help. So firstly, number 1 is distance. Keep standing back from your painting. Do this regularly and be disciplined to keep standing back. Sometimes I add as few as 1 or 2 strokes and then just stand back to see how it looks. You can also try photographing it and viewing it on a small screen. Your painting should automatically resolve itself at a distance, but remember when you look at it up close, it will probably feel much rougher and more sketchy. This is why you need to keep viewing it from a distance, because if you don't, you'll end up painting out all that lovely brushwork. Number 2, visual reminders. Keep reminding yourself of how you want to paint. When I was trying to teach myself to paint loosely, I would stick artwork of artists I greatly admired around my painting area. I was continually looking at them and reminding myself how I wanted to paint. The problem with photos is that they are too perfect, and without a visual aid, you can end up just painting what you see in the photo and copying it. You could try also to rough up your photo a little. Put your photo into a program like Photoshop or Procreate. Paint over it, smudge it about, blur it. Just rough it up to make it less perfect. This will help you when you come to paint it. Number 3, learn from others. Just as when you are learning a musical instrument, you play music written by others, you can learn so much by painting other artists' paintings. You are not trying to copy that artist, but more figure out how they painted their pictures. And you have the benefit of a finished piece of work to guide you as well. But please remember to be respectful to any work you choose to paint as practice that is not a master artist's copy, as it will be subject to the rules of copyright. Keep them private for your individual learning only. Number 4, larger brushes. Use a brush that is larger than you feel comfortable using. This will force you to be looser because you will make less strokes trying to paint the object. Imagine trying to wrap a present in a pair of boxing gloves. You would be far less precise than without the gloves on. Using a larger brush has a similar effect. As soon as you start going small with your brushes, your painting will naturally start to tighten up. So save your small brushwork for your centre of interest. Number 5, select a centre of interest. I always try to paint how my eyes see. The eye cannot focus on all the detail like a camera can. The eye can only focus on one centre of interest, and then it begins to blur as you move further out. I try to paint like this. So in this Dachshund painting, my centre of interest are the eyes, and I have edited out the detail. The best way to edit out detail is to squint. If you can't see it when squinting, then don't put it in. So you would use your smaller brushes in your area of interest and then start going larger with your brushes as you move out. Using larger brushes in the early stages of your painting is really important, as it is much easier to refine than to start adding looseness later on. I find if I am struggling with an area at any point, if I pick up a large brush and make some decisive strokes, it really sorts it out. And finally, number 6, variety. Remember that variety is the spice of life, so try to keep your painting texture as varied as possible. So for example, use thick paint, thick strokes, thin strokes, transparent paint, opaque paint. Just keep mixing it up. It will help add interest to your paintings. There are various methods to thin your paint. There are lots of mediums to experiment with. Also think about the marks that different brushes make. You can scratch out with the back of your brush, use your finger, a palette knife, a paper towel. There are lots of ways to lay the paint. So all these methods that I've discussed will help make your paintings more painterly. I work regularly from reference photos and have found with lots of patience and practice, I have managed to develop a loose style. I hope you have found today's video useful. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you'll find examples of my work and details of online classes and lessons that I run. Thank you for watching, and see you for the next one.